Hello everyone, welcome to the Learning Royal. Today we will be covering Python Basic Week 4. Week 4 agenda: Java functions, creating functions, if statements, else statements, and lastly and or and not operators. So before we cover the importance of functions, what are functions? So functions are just kind of recipes in computers. If you define a function in a computer, it's basically a set of commands that a computer will remember each and every time. Instead of copying pasting those commands each and every time you do something, you can just call the function. So that's how easy it is. Importance of functions, and that they help you do jobs in no time. Like you can make a function and you don't really have to write the commands all over again. They remember how to do things. So if you forget how you did something, if you made a function about how you did something, the computer will remember it, so you don't need to remember it at all. And then there is the last reason, which is very important. By calling it, you can perform many tasks at once. So calling a function, using a function, you can do many commands. You can run many commands at the same time. So that's very important about this. So function syntax: define a def. Basically, you have to write def, Python short form, and then name the name of the function. And then you have to put the parameters in it. Parameters are the variables which you'll use in the commands. Like not y, not you're making what y is, but x here. You don't know the value of x, so how will you find the value of y? To find the value of y, you can put a parameter in as x, and then you'll be able to do it. And then basically all the commands. So these commands, like we have print y at the end. Sample problem: create a function that finds the sum of two numbers. So if you want to find the sum of two numbers, you have a program here. We name the function program, def, and then space program. We put in not brackets. We put in parentheses. We put two numbers as the parameters x and y. Then we have our colon to just say that we're gonna list the commands now. Tabbed indented commands. So sum is equal to x plus y. Then we can print the sum, and then we're gonna call the function later on, which I'm gonna show you. So to call the function, you have to say the function's name and write whatever parameters. So I just put x. We can do whatever you want. Okay. So let me change this a little. So we have this Python screen. I'm gonna resize this so you can see. Okay, here. Now let's start this function, which it says define program x comma y. So we're gonna define the program, then we're gonna make the make these things, which is the parameters, as x and y, and then we'll put this colon. Now when we enter, it's gonna have it indented to show that we have all our commands now. So what commands do we have in here? Sum equals x plus y. So we have sum. That's our new variable which we are making. X plus y. Oh, sorry. Sum. It turns out that sum is a predefined function, so we'll do sum1 instead of sum. And then the next thing will be print sum1. In our case, it's sum1 because our variable is that. Now we have our function. Let's see if we save this, what happens. Okay, I saved this. Now it should run the shell. Did it run yet? Oh, it just saved. Okay. And let's run this shell. Okay. So it's running the shell. I'm gonna show you the shell. This is the shell. It's running. Okay. See, nothing came. It just the three arrows came. that means something is kind of wrong with our function that we made, probably, right? That's what you might think. But there is absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's just that we have to call a function to make it run. So how do you call a function? As I mentioned before, to say the function's name, we have a program, and then you put in variables. It even shows you which ones. So x comma y. So which x and y are the numbers in this case. So let's put 9 and 15. 9 and 15 as our numbers. Now when we run this, it shows us a answer is 24. So that's how easy functions are. Now we are gonna go for if statements. But what does if mean in statements? So it's basically like conditions. When some condition is true, then something will happen. That's an example when a condition states, if a number is more than 5, print more than 5. Then, and more than 5 will only be printed when a number is more than 5. So so you can control which things are printed or which thing comes out. So this is the syntax for an if statement. Define something like the name, and then you can put the parameters, and that's basically the function syntax. Inside the function, you can write other commands too, you don't have to. So main if command syntax, if, then a statement. So like y is more than 0, y is less than 0. Then it's gonna be some action, which are the commands. In this case, you can see it's p equals x over y, or print, and then print p. So let's try our own. So in this thing, instead of this, let's use what I made earlier here. So define division x and y. Define division x and y. And we're gonna remove this for now. If y is more than 0 or y is less than 0. Also, we're gonna learn about we're gonna learn about that later, so you will understand. I'm gonna jump to that right now then. So and, or, and not, those are the three operators. And if you put and between two statements, it's only true if both the conditions are true. If you put or between two statements, it's true if any one of the conditions is true. And if you put not before a statement, it's the opposite of the statement. So if it's true, it's going to be false. If it's false, it's going to be true. So now let's go back to our if statement. So we're using the or operator here. You can put or in lowercase. You have to put or in lowercase. Or in some languages you can put these two bars. But in Python you have to put or normal lowercase. Then we have p equals x over y. And print p. So again, we know from our previous experience this wouldn't do anything if this happens. And so now let's call, if we just put the function, now let's call the function. Let's say 9 and 1. Well, let's predict what will happen. So 1 is y, and that's more than 0. So yeah, this statement's true. So this is gonna run, and we're gonna get 9. So let's see if we're right. Yes, that's correct. So let's see what happens if we put 0, which is the case that we want to avoid here. Then it doesn't print anything because this if statement's not run. Impressive. Now Elif statement meaning. So Elif is another statement, type of statement, like the if statement. So Elif is the short form of else if. So when the if statement is true, the compiler executes the rest of the function under the if statement and does not go any further with the statements. But when the if statement before the elif statement is false, then the compiler goes to the elif statement below it and executes it. So let's see. I'm gonna show an example. First, let's just read everything. If another condition is there and that condition is true in the elif statement, then that action is followed. If not, then it keeps on going down the list. So you can have one elif or multiple elif. is the same syntax. You just put elif instead of if. So let's try here. Let's say that we want to see if y is 1. Well, you would notice that if we put elif here, y is more than 0, we already got that statement, so this would never run. So let's say that we put if y is more than 1 on y is equal to 1 on the top. Equal to is double equal to sign. This is Python, that's why. So then it will be p is equal to x, because that's how it works, division. Now we have an elif. If y is not equal to 1, then it's gonna go to the elif statement. So it's gonna, then we can have it y is more than 0, y is more than 0, or y is less than 0. Then it's gonna go on to what we did earlier. That's gonna be the p, which I said as the sum, not the sum, the quotient is gonna equal x all over y. So when we run this now with 1, it's just gonna show normally. Like, let's just run this to check if the if statement's working. So yes, that works, so that's 9. And is the elif statement working? Let's not have it as 1. So because, okay, oh yeah, I forgot to add print p, so yeah, it is working. The if statement was cancelled, but let's just check if the elif statement's working by saying print p. See, that's also working, because it shows us the answer. Now, we discussed this already. Now there is also one other type of statement called else statement. So in else statements, if all of the ifs and elifs don't work, so this if, and you can make multiple elif statements. Like under this, I can make another elif, like elif x is equal to 0 or something. So then, and this statement, which is the else statement, is run. So how do you run it? Again, else, this doesn't have anything in front of it, because else is the last resort. You can't have anything in front of it. If nothing works, only then else works. You can't really have a command. If you want to have a command in front of else, that's going to be the elif statement. So then, and let's try else print division error. So division error because y is 0 then. So let's try that. Else print division error. But let's try, does this work? If y is 0, should it print division error or not? Yes, it does. Y is 0, then it prints that. That makes sense because dividing by 0 is impossible. Now changing value in any function. So if you want to change the value in any function, for example, let's delete and let's comment this. So just so you know, multi-line comments are used with 3 of this multi-string things. 3 of the quotes, which is the same thing as a multi-string, multi-line string. So changing value, let's define a new function. Define, and then let's name it values. And we have only one value, x. Now what are we gonna do to it? And let's define a parameter also. If x is less than 0, then and x plus x is equal to 0, then right there. That's just normal if statements. We can use that. But let's see, under any of the if or elif statements, or sometimes even in loops, which we're going to talk about later, when you have to do something, you can also change the value of the variable. So in this statement, we know x is less than 0. You can decrease x by making x is equal to the current x minus something or plus something, and same thing. You like right here you can see, but so x plus 4, let's say that. and then when we run this function values, and let's put a negative number, let's put -1. When we run this function, it's not gonna print anything. Oh yeah, let's say print x after this, print x. It prints 3, even though it was -1 in the first place. So you can change the value of x there. Now, because computer scientists, computer people thought that rewriting this thing like x equals x plus 4, that's gonna take a long time, they made a shortcut. The shortcut is, if you want to subtract a value from something, you can do x minus equals and then whatever value, let's say 4. But in this case we were adding something, so x plus equals 4. Let's see if that still works, and yes it does. So that's one way you can do this. And now finally the return command. So return is used while making is very useful while making print statements for this. Like, let's say that we want whatever value this is, whatever value we get from p, to just be stored in this line of code. So then we can print it like this instead of having to do this. Okay, so instead of printing p each and every time, we can do return p. So like each and every if statement or at the end of a function, you can return a variable or any value like this. Now it will be the same, because return basically means to store that value for the specific line that you have called it from. So when we return return p in this case, in these two cases, and return division error, it's gonna get substituted here, and then we can print that value to get what we want. So let's try this. It's 9 and 0, division error. Okay, let's change the value up a little. 9 and 1, 9, good job. And let's change it a bit more. 9 and 2, 4.5, good job. So we finished, we know how to do return. So this is just a sample one, define division and x comma y, same thing. This time I just wrote a little less, quotient is equal to x over y. Then it's just gonna return quotient, and you get it. Assignment of the day. This is a wordy one. I got this from the internet. So this was one of the good problems which I found, which could really use functions, and you don't really need to use a lot of things. So how do you do this? Make a function that finds out the cost for going to 4 cities: Los Angeles, Pittsburgh, Tampa, and Charlotte. So first, let's start by making the function. We don't need this function anymore. So define and city visitation. Let's write city visitation as the name of the function. Now what parameters do we need? So place. We would need to know the place, because it costs $140 to stay there per night. Okay. The plane costs are below, because it's different to go to any place with the different amount of plane cost. We need the place, absolutely need the place. Also add the cost for the car rental, just $40 per day. Now we're using days here, so we also need to know how many days you need to stay there. If you take the rental for more than 7 days, you get $50 off. We're gonna use that in our function because we can't have a parameter for that. That's just a condition. If you take it for more than 3 days, you get $20 off. In your function, also add a parameter called spending money. Okay, this was easy. You can easily do that. And then to calculate the extra money which is going to be spent, and try your function to find out which of the following plans is the cheapest. Okay, now they have given us 4 options. 4 days Los Angeles, 300 spending money. So basically all 3 of our parameters, and we basically have to find out which one is the cheapest. So let's see, how can we make it? First, we have the plain cost. So first, let's just make it total cost as a variable, which is going to define the total cost. Right now, let's start with 0. Now, plain cost. If place is equal to, let's start with Los Angeles, then we'll have 475. So total cost will be increasing by 475 because we're adding that to our total cost. And then we can use Elif to find it for other things like Tampa and Charlotte and Pittsburgh. So place is equal to Tampa and then total cost plus E equals 220. Elif place is equal to Charlotte total cost plus equals 183. And now it's your choice for what to do for the last statement. You can do else if you don't want to write that much, but just to make sure that I understand the code myself, I'm gonna write Elif. You could have written else and then just said total cost plus equals 222 because that's the only definition left. But I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna write it all down to make it clear. See, and sometimes you might make a mistake, so I made the mistake in the writing of Pittsburgh. Okay, that's fine. Total cost plus equals 222. So we have this for our flight tickets. Now, per day, you have $140 to stay there per night and $40 per day. So total, you can do this even in the normal function, plus equals, and how much should we increase it by? 140 plus 40. So 140 plus 40 whole thing times the number of days, and days is one of, luckily we added that as one of our parameters, so days. Good, we have that done. Now the total cost is going to increase that much. Now we can also add our spending money. So total cost plus equals spending money. Okay, good. Now we also need to subtract a few things from our total cost if some things are true, because we have these two statements. If you take the rental for more than 7 days, then you get $50 off. And so $50 off in total, yeah. So if days is more than 7, then total cost minus equals 50. Elif days is more than 3, we're gonna use the second statement now. Just if you take the rental for more than 3 days, you get $20 off. So then total cost minus equals 20. Now we have this function almost done. We just need to find the values for each one of them. So let's call it, also let's return total cost so it's easier for us to use it later on. So now we will print, and so what's the first thing? Los Angeles, that cost for Los Angeles, plus, and we're gonna make another string which is gonna be this one, and we're gonna call the function on Los Angeles the city visitation, and place is Los Angeles as we know. Okay, my typing's bad, please excuse it. Days is 4 and 300 spending money. Okay, let's copy and paste this. So we have in the second place is Pittsburgh, and then city visitation. The place is Pittsburgh again. Days 5 and $200 spending money. $200 spending money. Okay. I'm just gonna change each and every variable like this, and this one's Tampa, right? Yeah, and then the last one's Charlotte. Here, Tampa, and finally we have called all our functions. So if you remember this value in city visitation, whatever parameters we were writing, that's going to get substituted by the total cost. So we don't need to worry anything about that. Now let's find out the truth. Okay, comparing all of these rates, we can find out the easy winner, Pittsburgh, with $1302 only. So if you're so the assignment that they solved, the thing we should choose is option B, Pittsburgh. And that's it for this. That's it for today. Please make sure to subscribe to the Learning Royal and press the notification bell for more videos. Thank you.